So after 9 months and almost 500 miles with the ES4, how do I feel about it? When I originally started doing research on the ES4, I didn't really see any negative reviews except for a few about error codes that seemed like they were fixed with firmware updates. So after searching for about a month, I finally decided to take the plunge. For the first month, I really loved the ES4. I loved the sleek design, how it wasn't too flashy. It had some nice underglow. I liked the overall feel of it. I thought it was a pretty great scooter. It always gave me about 20 miles of range on a single charge, and that was with sports mode turned on as well as cruise control and using the app to track my rides. My only real complaint was the solid tires. They made it so you could feel literally every single bump and crack that you went over. Then after that first month, I started having issues. And maybe it was just me kind of coming out of a honeymoon phase of having a new scooter and being really excited about it, or maybe it was starting to realize how cheap parts of it actually were. The front fender cracked after I went over a bump that wasn't even an inch high, and the whole scooter made this really loud clang sound that I typically hear when I go over like any bump. You just hear the sound. That fender is made out of like this cheap dollar store picture frame plastic. So every time I was riding, even on a smooth surface, it would just shake a whole lot and you could hear it no matter what I was doing. It was super, super loud. So the key points that I'm gonna go over with the ES4 are the scooter quality itself, the range that it's advertised as versus what I get now 9 months later, the overall riding feel and experience with the scooter, and then finally the customer service from Segway. The stem of the ES4 is made out of a high quality aluminum alloy. Unfortunately, most of the rest of the scooter is made out of really trash plastic. Specifically going back to that front fender, even after trying to fix it and taping it, there's like a part underneath the stem that you can't really get to unless you take the scooter apart that still just shakes and rattles in there and causes a lot of noise. The solid tires don't really have much grip on them. If you go over a little bit of sand on the road, you're gambling with fate. Little sprinkler puddle, or you trying to ride it in the rain, I mean, this thing is gonna definitely slide around more than is gonna be comfortable for pretty much anybody, even if you're only going like 10 or 12 miles an hour. The single spring that they have at the bottom of the stem, every time that it has to be used going over any kind of bump or slight like speed hump or anything, I mean, it makes this insane crashing sound. Like I said before, a lot of folks online have talked about how it's an absolutely horrifying sound, and it really is. The first time I actually heard it in real life, I thought for sure that the whole base of the scooter just broke. The kickstand that's on the scooter really isn't that impressive. I feel like every time I put it down, I really have to be careful of exactly how it's angled. I gotta tilt the front wheel just the right way to make sure it doesn't fall over, but even the slightest bit of uneven ground, the scooter will still just fall over. It's not a good kickstand at all. On the handle between the main console and the throttle and brake rings, there's these pieces of plastic that really just look like they're there for show, but one day one of them just came completely loose. It just slides left and right. And originally I had wanted to put my phone mount on that side so I can have my phone. Unfortunately, that made that one side completely useless for me. And just having that plastic bit just kind of shaking back and forth is also kind of unnerving and telling of the real cheapness of the ES4. So as I was riding out to my next location to talk about range, I noticed that my battery was down to about 28%. Usually when it drops below 30, acceleration gets a lot weaker. It takes a lot longer to actually accelerate, and it sometimes doesn't even let me get higher than like 16 miles per hour. So I decided to come home and I'll finish filming here. Talking about range, Segway says that the scooter will get about 28 miles on a single charge. And I knew that I definitely wasn't gonna get 28 miles on a single charge since I'm on the heavier side of what they say the max payload is. But I was hoping to at least get like 22, maybe 24. For that first month, I was averaging about 20 miles on a single charge. And that 20 miles was fully on sport mode with cruise control on and using the app to actually map out where I was riding. About a month and a half after I started using it, I noticed that I was only getting like 18, between 16 and 18, and I stopped using the cruise control. I stopped using the app to record it, and occasionally I put it in sports mode and then it would still get like 18. Now, 9 months after having it and putting almost 500 miles on it, I can barely even get 12 miles on a single charge. I still primarily use it in sport mode, but I disabled cruise control and I never use the app anymore because I don't want the Bluetooth to drain any of the battery. and I pretty much never ride at night, so I don't even use the lights, the underglow, the front headlight, anything like that. So there's nothing else that should be draining the battery. And the other thing is that now I'm about 10 pounds lighter than I was when I first got it. So I kind of expected the range to at least keep up close to that 18-20 mark. But now, like I said, I can barely even get 12 miles before the whole battery just dies out. And the fact that the scooter isn't even a year old and I'm getting less than half of what Segway even advertises as is like a super red flag for me. So for the overall feeling of the ride, it's a little bit uneasy because the tires are pretty thin, narrow tires. The single spring suspension that's in the shafts doesn't really do anything to take away any of the rumbles that you feel in the handle. And while the footplate does have like a bending rear suspension, it's not that good. And even after lubricating it, cleaning it, it still makes a lot of noise, and it really just dips down a lot. Doesn't feel like there's any sort of actual support on it. You remember that old arcade machine that had like 2 handles that you would hold on to and the whole machine would shake and it made it feel like it was electrocuting you? Well, that feeling that you would get in your hands and your palms and your wrists and everything, imagine that in your whole body. And that's what it's like after about 20 minutes of riding the scooter, unless it's on completely smooth pavement. And as far as customer service is concerned, I mean, I definitely put it in like my top 5 worst experiences. I've emailed them multiple times before and just never gotten any response. You know, I make sure I check my spam folder, I make sure I check everything, and they just never get back to me. Would I recommend this scooter to anybody? Not really, not in good conscience anyway. There are a lot of scooters that are similarly priced or even a little bit less expensive. Now, maybe if you're some kind of Segway loyalist, or you're just gonna be using the ES4 to get around campus or in like a gated community that has super nice roads or super smooth sidewalks, then sure, maybe go with the ES4. If you're not planning on trying to go any farther than like 14 miles, and maybe even limit that to like 10-mile out and back trips. Out of a 10, I would give the ES4 a 3, and that's really only because I like the sleek look of it and I like the underglow. I think that's a super neat feature, and I've always loved the idea of a scooter, but the ES4, unfortunately, not even being a year old, has left a real bad taste in my mouth and a big pain in my back. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe down below, leave a comment, let me know if you have any experiences with the ES4. Any great stories, any horror stories, anything that I might have missed, let me know. And I'll catch y'all in the next. Peace.